Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Alright guys, I'm back and it is September 17th, Thursday, and it is 10:04 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. We are going to get into the news, but I do want to apologize for being off some. I am dealing with some sort of a flu bug, and it has knocked me flat out. So I thought I was getting better and then it came back around. So I don't know what this is, but I hope none of you are dealing with this. Anyway, we're going to get into the news tonight, but first I do have a couple people to thank, and the following four people actually have all switched over from Patreon. At least I believe they've switched over from Patreon. Jen, and she is now giving monthly via Coffee. Karen Wilkinson, also giving monthly, Robin Gailey monthly, and Aaron Steele monthly. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate that, and you guys are what keeps this channel going, so I appreciate it very much. And if you are in one of those people that is struggling financially or on a fixed income or whatever, please don't ever feel guilty about not. You can support the channel in other ways, prayer, or just writing comments. It all helps. So thank you guys so much. And also, I got something in the mail, the snail mail, from Robin Galley as well. So thank you. She gave me a hysterical cat card, and also earrings, and a wonderful note. So thank you so much, Robin. I got that, and I appreciate it very much. I always find it so fun to get snail mail. I don't know why. I guess because, you know, you hardly ever get mail anymore unless it's a bill. So yeah. Anyway, let's get on with the news because there's lots to cover as always, and let's get at it. Now, I'm sure you have heard about this, maybe. This happened yesterday, the 16th. Fox News panel melts down after Newt Gingrich correctly calls out lawless Soros-funded district attorneys. Well, it's about time somebody did, but I'm a little bit shocked at the way Fox reacted. Maybe I shouldn't be. But anyway, truth is the new hate speech, and isn't that the truth? The Fox News panel on Outnumbered melted down on Wednesday after former Speaker Newt Gingrich accused George Soros of funding radical lawless district attorneys across the country today. Many of these radical activist prosecutors are allowing the riots and vandalism in their communities. This is a fact, and we all know that's a fact. The panel did not like Newt's comments on the Soros-funded operatives in public office and shut him down. This was bizarre. And the Columbia Bugle nailed it. We live in insane times if Newt Gingrich is too controversial for Fox News. Yes, indeed. But let's take a look at this. And I'll make it bigger here.
And overwhelmingly elected with George Soros' money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the streets.
It's true.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this. I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's verboten.
All right, we're gonna...
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Pro-criminal and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros' money.
It's starting over again. But isn't that interesting? And he said, oh, it's verboten, meaning it's forbidden. I don't know what to think about that. I'm absolutely shocked because I don't know how that can be argued with. It's fact. It's an absolute fact, a provable fact. So what's up with Fox News? I don't know. Maybe I don't want to know. Anyway, says this is not new information or controversial information, not even from Fox. The fact that George Soros donated to several radical, lawless district attorney races around the country is well documented. Attorney General Bill Barr called out Soros for subverting the legal system and causing an increase in violent crime back in December. And it's a fact. It's provable. So what's the controversy there? Huge. AG Bill Barr calls out George Soros for subverting legal system and causing increase in violent crime and more victims through targeting district attorney races. Let's look at this. Far-left billionaire George Soros has been systematically targeting district attorney races throughout the United States. Many of his backed candidates have won their races and are causing havoc across the country. This week, U.S. Attorney Bill Barr spoke with Marta McCallum on Fox News. Bill Barr called out George Soros for subverting the, let's look at what this is. The legal system in the U.S. and creating more crime and violence. Again, that you can't argue with that. It's fact. It's fact. But they don't like fact. They like to go with the preset narrative, whatever they decide that is. It has nothing to do with truth, and it hasn't for a very long time. But it still shocked me from Fox News. It really did. So let's look at this. This is also from the Gateway Pundit, and this is from yesterday, but it's still pretty fresh news. Greatest recovery ever. Markets went from a bear market to record highs in shortest time frame in history. President Trump can now claim he has overseen the greatest economy in U.S. history and the greatest recovery in U.S. history. The U.S. markets have increased more in the past few months than any time in history. The increases are truly historic. But will he get credit for that? Of course not. Yahoo Finance reported today the Dow Jones Industrial Average, despite the recent turmoil, has almost recovered all losses suffered during the coronavirus pandemic. The blue chip index bounced back from the bear market territory in March and is now near its all-time high achieved on February 12th, 2020. And isn't that interesting, because that is right around when the virus happened. And of course, the virus, dampened the stock market significantly. So, now, right close to the election, it's bouncing back. Greatest gain in U.S. history. And I wonder if they're going to do something else to bring down the economy so they can blame it on Trump, because that seems to be their method of operation. Similarly, the S&P 500 had plummeted more than 30% within 6 weeks this spring, marking its fastest descent from record levels into a bear market. But the broader index has been on an uptrend, recording the fifth successive month of rally in August in more than 80 years. What's more, the S&P's 500 journey from a record high in February to a bear market in March, and then again to a new record, only took 126 trading days this year, the fastest ever climb. To put things into perspective, if we go back to 1928, it took the index 1,500 trading sessions to return to record levels after slipping into bear territory. In addition, the U.S. set a record for the most new jobs in a month. In June, we reported on July 2nd, job numbers increased today through the end of June were massive. Job numbers released today through the end of June were massive. There was an increase of nearly 5 million jobs, and the unemployment rate dropped to 11.1%, more than 2 points lower than May's 13.3%. The markets are at a record pace, and now jobs are coming back. This is great news after the horrendous economic disaster the China coronavirus placed on the economy. Before this, the United States and President Trump were enjoying the greatest economy in U.S. and world history, with the GDP at 23 trillion, more than any economy ever. That's what happens when you put a businessman in charge of the country and not a a career politician. That's what happens. We should have done that a long time ago. And this country is absolutely hopeless if they vote for Joe Biden, which we know there's not a chance that would happen. There is a chance they would try to steal the election. Well, of course they will try to steal the election, but let's just hope and pray they are not successful, because this country needs Trump to recover from all this nonsense and get us back on the right footing. We need infrastructure to be rebuilt. All sorts of things are needed, and Joe Biden is not the person to get it done. We know that. Joe Biden is not the person to get anything done. All right, let's go back now and let's look at this. Very odd here. Now, this is from September 15th, so it's a couple days old, but I did want to bring this to you. Teenage campaign staffer for Ilhan Omar's opponent. This is the person that's running against Ilhan Omar. One of the staffer of the person that is running against Ilhan Omar was killed in Minneapolis shooting. 17-year-old who worked for a Republican running against Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar was shot and killed in Minneapolis on Monday. Lacey Johnson, the Republican running for Congress, confirmed on Tuesday that the teenager killed in a shooting in North Minneapolis was a member of his outreach team. Johnson noted the teenager and one other man who was injured in the shooting both worked for him, but they were not carrying out campaign duties when they were shot. Today, we are shocked and saddened to learn of this senseless act of violence. It is shocking and unnecessary acts of violence like this that prove why change is more needed than ever in our community, Johnson said in a statement. The two men were outside a convenience store on Monday afternoon when the shooting took place. Both men were rushed to the hospital after the shooting. The teenager was pronounced dead at the hospital. The other man sustained serious injuries but is expected to survive. The gunman or gunmen fled the scene and no one has been apprehended. The Minneapolis Police Department told WCCO that it does not believe the shooting was politically motivated. Yeah, right. Shootings have skyrocketed in Minneapolis over the past several months following the death of George Floyd, a black man who died in Minneapolis police custody, including the death of Johnson's staff member. There have been 55 homicides in Minneapolis in 2020. In 2019, the city had 48 homicides in total. The Minneapolis City Council has toyed with abolishing the police department, but its plans have been stalled. A campaign aide for Johnson told Fox 9 that the death of his colleague is proof that the city needs new leadership. No doubt about that. And I happen to believe that it probably was politically motivated. It could be a coincidence, but it's a mighty big one if you ask me. So there you go. You can decide for yourselves whether you think it is politically motivated or just somebody randomly shooting. Don't know. And let's come back and let's look at this by Candace Owens. Boy, I have so much respect for that girl. Fun to consider that they've canceled Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben, but Cuties on Netflix is here to stay. The left really has its priorities straight. Yeah, right. Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. Crazy. I mean, that's out there. Anyway, let's go on now, because we've got lots to get to. All right. Now, yeah, this says this is not a forest fire. Let me get this bigger for you guys. And I don't know. I've had people say to me, well, you know, the trees don't burn because they carry more moisture and so forth. But come on, these houses, they're not just burned, they're decimated. There's nothing left. There's ashes. Nobody's going to go into that home and be able to recover anything out of there. Not pictures, not anything. You know, really, it is unusual. I mean, I've seen some fires in my day. And generally, you know, the fire burns and there's still stuff that you can go in and, you know, little pockets that didn't burn and so forth. And usually people are able to go in and get something out, maybe all smoke damage, but these are nothing. Like, these houses burn completely and totally. They're consumed. Now, I just find that hard to believe. And look, it burned so hot that it's right down to the foundation. That's all that's left is foundation and ash. That's it. But all these green trees standing around it untouched. And you can say, oh, well, the trees are, they got moisture in them. But come on. Yeah, okay, I get that. I do get that trees, they've got moisture in them. But for it to consume a house, imagine the heat. These trees aren't even wilted. Nothing. I have a hard time believing that. So let's just take a look at this. There's no sound. It's just going through, showing these houses. And then houses across from them, like, let me go back here just a second. Let's look over here. Okay, this house over here that they're showing, this yard is nice and green, beautifully landscaped. This house is gone right down to the foundation, absolutely nothing left. This one completely gone, right down to the foundation, and you've got a burnt out car there. I hope there was nobody in there. And then it moves over here, and look at this house, completely right down to the foundation. Nothing left there, but the trees are all standing. I find that odd. How does it burn that hot and not kill the trees? I don't know. And look to me, it looks like these fires are targeting houses, not forest. None of this is burned up here at all. This tree isn't burned at all, but these houses, every single one of them burnt to the foundation, entirely down, completely consumed. Now, I know there are people, even on in the comments, that say, oh, no, I'm a firefighter, that's normal. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not normal. I don't care what you do for a living. That's not normal. It's just not. Just the houses. And there, it looks like a church or something over there. It's perfectly fine. Well, this looks like it could have been a mall or strip mall or something. But look there's nothing left in there. Nothing. But the trees are all fine. So don't worry about the trees. They're okay. Like, this fire seems to just jump around and hit houses. That's what it looks like to me. Missed some. But yeah, so and let's go down here. I guess we already looked at that. So all right. Yeah, hard to believe, isn't it? Anyway, I don't know, maybe some of you may think that I'm crazy, but that's what I think. That is my opinion, that this isn't normal. And I think that they are being done with weapons. You know what kind of weapons. And why? I don't know. There's a few things that come to my mind as to why they might be doing this. Maybe they're wanting that land. Maybe they're going to sell the land off to the highest bidder once it's clear of all the houses and everybody gets out of there. I don't know what the plan is. It could be for the emergency money. That's another thing. But I think it involves more than that. It might even be the whole Agenda 2030 and that. So I don't know, but there you go. And here we go. Look at this. Truth brings light, and we have something coming down here and lighting a fire. Now, the other one that I had mentioned, I had showed it was taken from a plane, and they were, doing fire along in a row, and someone said, well, that's a backburn. Now, I completely agree with that, because once I look at that and they're saying, no, look at how they're burning it, it's in a straight line and whatever, that's what they do to get a fire under, I don't know. I don't understand the whole thing, but that's what they do. So I agree with that, and I can totally concur with that. But that isn't this. So I don't know. Anyway, let's come down here and let's look at this. All righty. It's taken a while. I guess it's walking here. All right, now this from the Right Wire Report, and I've never utilized this website before, but I have no reason to suspect it yet. Wednesday, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper spoke at a virtual air, space, and cyber conference from the Pentagon. What he said was remarkable and chilling. Right Wire Report heard the distinct shift from discussing compelling nations' pursuits to achieve a specific threat to frankly stating that they have now achieved this capability and hope all Americans are paying close attention. Secretary Esper said China and Russia seek to erode our long-standing dominance in air power through long-range fires, anti-access area denial systems, and other asymmetrical capabilities designed to counter our strengths. Meanwhile, in space, Moscow and Beijing have turned a once peaceful arena into a war-fighting domain. They have weaponized space through killer satellites, directed energy weapons, and more in an effort to export our military systems and chip away at our military advantage. Furthermore, our competitors and adversaries exploit cyberspace to undermine our national security without confronting our conventional strengths. Please stop your world long enough to watch the full 11-minute video. Now, we can't do that, but consider that just months ago, earlier this year, the Defense Intelligence Agency warned in a report that China and Russia have both developed robust and capable space services for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. China and Russia, in particular, are developing a variety of means to exploit perceived U.S. reliance on space-based systems and challenge the U.S. position in space. It said. Now, the notable shift from developing to capable, remember that in 2007, China demonstrated it could shoot down a satellite with a ground-based missile system. The late-night host's ridicule and media's mocking of President Trump's priority to create, implement, and fund the U.S. Space Force has not aged well. For additional reading on Russia's advanced military capabilities, read here and here. So just what are we talking about here? DO has been an advanced technology developed by the United States, Russia, China, and perhaps a few other countries, and has been used in combat and other scenarios. Here is a general overview, and I think we understand what direct energy weapons are. For those still skeptical about DOs, they have been on the International Traffic in Arms Regulation, ITAR, for some time. See USML Category 18 for certain laser-based direct energy weapon system equipment and components subject to the ITAR. But today, Esper is speaking about this technology harnessed and used from space and termed this use as killer satellites and long-ranged fires. Esper's declaration today is a sea change. When one places this information into most recent events, a more complete picture emerges. China and Russia and their proxies like Iran and North Korea have been waging asymmetrical war upon the United States, including cyber and information warfare. Recent events to be considered: China hacking U.S. systems and intellectual theft, Iran hacking into the U.S. government web portal, Russia, China, and Iran interfering in presidential elections. Well, I don't believe that. So that makes me suspect this website already. Chinese government's refusal to report, contain, and in fact facilitate the spread of pathogen and disinformation, the unseemly and effective control of U.S. media to spread Chinese propaganda. Attorney General Barr states evidence that the radical left-wing Antifa movement, as well as other extremist groups, have hijacked legitimate protests around the country. The federal government has evidence that the radical left-wing Antifa movement, as well as other extremist groups, have hijacked legitimate protests around the country to incite violence, and said certain foreign actors are seizing on the unrest to sow discord in the U.S. The right-wing The Right Wire report has no interest in fear-mongering or selling conspiracy theories. However, when attempting to write about this issue, we came across numerous attached information related to the recent wildfire tragedies across the Northwest over the last few years and presently. There have been eyewitness reports of unexplained phenomena and videos produced. The Right Wire report cannot authenticate videos. There are many Twitter feeds and YouTube videos, so we choose two that sum up this point of view. Generally, many have questioned how the recent fires have left trees and yards pristine while taking out homes and buildings in the same path. They question how cars are burnt to a crisp, but not the home the car is parked at, and how trees were burned from inside out. The aerial footage at times makes no sense when considering the path of a raging fire. The Right Wire report has no opinion on this matter or any evidence that the fires are caused by any weapon, but does include those voices most affected by the fires for your review in the context of our story. And if you're like me, you've seen zillions of these. So I'm not gonna stop to play these because some of them are probably quite long. But anyway, we know that this is not normal. I think anybody with a brain in their head knows this isn't normal. One thing is for certain, that after today's statement by Esper, we can no longer hide our heads in the sand. If not direct military human targets, our banking, medical, utility, and transportation systems need satellites to function. It is imperative that the United States must stay ahead of the military next frontier, even in space. And it's true, everyone mocked Trump, but he is ahead of the curve. Ahead of the curve. You think Biden's going to protect us? Biden doesn't even remember what he had for lunch. And I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of the man. I know that he's ill, but what they're doing to him is elder abuse. That's it, plain and simple. And I don't believe that he's acting on his own, thinking, yeah, I want to be president and I'm going to go. No, he is being coached the whole way. He's got an army of people behind him. He's got a teleprompter. The guy barely comes out of his basement, and he hasn't been in front of any crowds. So, and he hasn't consented to any debates, which is odd. I think that somebody is just using him as a puppet, and I think it's disgusting. So what must they have on him that they are making him do that? Because really, you would think that his wife would put her foot down and say, look, no, you're not doing this to my husband. But nope. All right. And speaking of Biden, let's look at this. I'm sure a lot of you may have seen this already, but it says Joe Biden waving at his imaginary supporters. Remember when Hillary Clinton used to always do that? And I heard other politicians saying that is like an old political trick. Like you point to the audience and you go, like as if somebody is there when really there's nobody there, but it makes it look like you've got all these friends that are out in the audience, like, and Hillary used to do that all the time. She'd go, and so that is exactly what Biden's doing. But unfortunately, there was somebody at the other side that it would have worked if the camera was at, maybe, I don't know, but they didn't have a good angle. So what they caught is him waving at an empty field. I wonder if it waved back. Just saying, I wonder. He does the same thing, points and waves. There's nothing out there, nothing. Who is he waving at? Like, do you see anybody out here? Anybody? And yet he points just like Hillary and waves. Yeah, I think not a soul out there. Not a soul. Oh gosh, I don't know. All right, let's go on now. Okay, and we've already looked at this about the Fox panel coming unglued when Soros was mentioned. So let's look at this now. James Lee Carr identified, arrested for allegedly shooting federal officer. Now, 68-year-old James Lee Carr was arrested Wednesday afternoon for allegedly firing the shots that wounded a security officer outside a federal courthouse in Phoenix, Arizona. Breitbart News reported the shooting on September 15, 2020, and shared a Phoenix Police Department tweet showing a photo of a car police wanted to find. And this is the tweet from Phoenix Police. Breaking, shooting outside 401 West Washington near the federal courthouse. Non-life-threatening injuries. Phoenix Police Department looking for a vehicle shown in this picture. Any tips, call 602-262-6151 or silentwitness.org. So there is the car. And Fox 10 Phoenix reports the car in the photo was gray Cadillac allegedly driving. It should be driven by car. The suspect was described as wearing a full brim hat, driving a silver Cadillac sedan westbound on Washington Street on the north side of the courthouse when he allegedly opened fire on the courthouse security guard who was inspecting a UPS truck before allowing it to enter the courthouse gate. Carr allegedly fired a handgun, hitting the officer in his bulletproof vest. The officer returned fire, striking the Cadillac roughly 8 times. Carr fled the scene and, a short time later, allegedly called his brother and confessed that he had carried out the shooting. Arizona Central reports Carr allegedly told his brother he wanted to die because he shot the security guard. After the confession, Carr's brother, son, and ex-wife went and located him at Verde Park with a rifle and a revolver allegedly lying beside him. The son took away the guns and the ex-wife called 911 to report Carr's location. Police took Carr into custody and tested his left hand for firearm residue. As they did, Carr allegedly said, "That's not the hand I shot with." ABC 15 reports that Carr's ex-wife's nephew described him as someone who wasn't a violent guy but suffers from mental illness. Phoenix City Councilman Sal DeCiccio, I probably didn't pronounce that right, posted a tweet suggesting Carr was a Black Lives Matter supporter, but Carr's nephew denied the allegation and contended his actions had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter or anything like it. So the left isn't the only one that tries to run with a narrative. They wanted him to be Black Lives Matter so they could say that, it was another violent attack, but it was just an older, mentally ill man. So at least he had remorse. I mean, that's a good thing. And at least the officer or the security guard was not seriously harmed. That is good news. All right, now let's look at the next item we have, which is this. Donald J. Trump, I am substantially lowering Medicare premiums, have instituted favored nations clause and rebates on drug companies, never been done before. The drug companies are hitting me with fake ads just like Sleepy Joe. Be careful, drug prices will be reduced massively and soon. Yes, and he has reduced I know he's reduced the cost of insulin, which is a big deal. So anyway, now let's continue on because we can. All right. And just so that you know, I'm probably not, I'm not going to do 2 videos tonight because I need to pace myself until I'm over whatever this is completely. But I'll be back to the odd night of doing 2 videos as soon as I'm feeling a little bit better. So most voters now believe there's a war on police, back Blue Lives Matter laws. So saying that most voters do believe that there's a war on police and they back these Blue Lives Matter laws, which I think all of us would agree with. I think we're all on the side of the police. Not that there's not bad police. There's lots of them actually, but that doesn't mean that you just throw the whole bunch out. In the wake of months of rioting nationwide, the American public has made up their minds when it stands on law and order where it stands. It should be where it stands on law and order, and it doesn't bode well for the defund the police crazies, as anyone who isn't a Democrat or cable news pundit could have predicted. Violent rioting turns people against the cause of what violent rioters are violently rioting in favor of. And in this case, rioters were rioting against the one state-sanctioned force that could stop these exact sort of riots that people hate. Meanwhile, support for policies specifically protecting police officers has risen in the wake of this violence. According to Rasmussen, most voters believe there is a war on police in America today and want to make attacks on cops punishable as a hate crime. Blacks worry most that these attacks will make their communities less safe. 59% of likely U.S. voters think that there is a war on police going on. That's up from 43% 2 years ago and up from a previous high of 58% in 2015. 59% also support the adoption of a Blue Lives Matter law in their state that would make attacks on police and first responders a hate crime and increase the penalties for such attacks. That's unchanged from 2016, when Louisiana became the first of more than a dozen states to adopt such a law. 68% of voters are concerned that deadly attacks on the police will lead to a shortage of police officers and reduce public safety where they live, with 44% who are very concerned. Whites, 63%, are bigger supporters of Blue Lives Matter laws than blacks, 52%, and other minority voters, 49%, but blacks, 84%, are a lot more concerned than whites, 66%, and other minorities, 70%, about a potential shortage of police officers in their community. According to past research from Rasmussen, defund the police is a fringe position that just 2 in 10 believe in, which is down from when rioting began. 66% of American adults now oppose reducing the police budget in their community, in the community where they live, to channel that money into more social services. That's up from 59% in early June when we first asked the question. Just 23% favor defunding the cops where they live, down from 27% in the previous survey. 11% are undecided. Calls for defunding the police are being aggressively championed by the Black Lives Matter movement, but even among Black Americans, 57% are opposed to defunding the police in their home community. 69% of whites and 62% of other minority adults share that view. 61% of all Americans believe that violent crime is likely to go up in communities that defund the police. Only 12% think violent crime is more likely to go down, while 20% predict it will remain about the same. As I've written before, the U.S. has a shortage of police officers relative to the world average. The U.S. employs many more prison guards per capita than does the rest of the world. Given our prison population, that isn't surprising. What is surprising is that on a per capita basis, we employ 35% fewer police than the world average. That's crazy, and it is. So there's a much stronger, this isn't written well. There's a much stronger whatever for refunding the police than anything else. So I think more people are for funding the police than anything else. Well, that's a loud airplane, isn't it? I'm right in the flight path. All right, now, this kind of makes me go, huh? Like, really? Minneapolis City Council is shocked to see crime rising after defunding police. Duh. What did they think was going to happen? Really? What did they think was going to happen? They're shocked. They must be a few bulbs short of a marquee. I don't know. These people aren't too bright if they're shocked. It's not just New York City that has seen a surge in crime following defunding their police department. It's a fate any city that adopts such a ridiculous policy can expect to see. Following the death of George Floyd, the Minneapolis City Council quickly moved to dismantle their city's police department and replace it with a Department of Community Safety and Violence Prevention. That proposal was delayed until November, but they did end up making cuts to police funding and their public rhetoric had demoralized police. The city has sent a clear message to officers that they are not standing behind them, and that severely compromises their ability to do their job correctly. Just recently, riots broke out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, after a man was shot dead charging an officer with a knife. The man had previously been arrested for a quadruple stabbing. In an era where any victim of a police shooting, no matter how justified, gets made into a martyr, how can police do their job knowing that the political class will side with the mob? Meanwhile, the Minneapolis City Council has noticed a surge in crime and still has yet to put two and two together. Wow. Yeah, the Minneapolis Police Department's crime data shows a rise in assaults, robberies, and homicides, as well as property crimes and arson. According to Minneapolis Public Radio, more people have been killed in the city in the first 9 months of 2020 than those slain in all of last year. Minneapolis City Council members who just 2 months ago moved to eliminate the police department sounded the alarm during a Wednesday meeting about a surge in crime seen by their constituents. Council members pressed Police Chief Medaria Arredondo, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, about the uptick in crimes, including daylight carjackings, robberies, assaults, shooting, and police and street racing. Residents are asking, where are the police? Said Council Member Jamal Osman, noting that constituents' call to the Minneapolis Police Department have gone unanswered. That is the only public safety option they have at the moment. Minneapolis Police Department, they rely on the Minneapolis Police Department, and they are saying they are nowhere to be seen. Incredibly, some managed to blame the police for the rise in crime. Yeah. Council President Lisa Bender accused police of intentionally not enforcing laws or making arrests. This is not new, Bender said, but it is very concerning in the current context. Of course, if they were enforcing laws and making arrests like Bender now claims to want, she'd be too busy blasting them as racist to thank them. Perhaps the social workers will come to the rescue. Over 100 officers have left the department or taken a leave of absence since the start of the year, twice as much as the department usually sees. Meanwhile, the Minneapolis City Council continues caving to the mob and still has yet to find a location to rebuild the department's third precinct, which was burned down during the rioting. Contrary to their new public rhetoric, it still sounds like they don't want the police to be able to do their job at all. They don't. They don't want the police to do their job, but when crime goes up, they want to be able to blame that on the police. Yeah, these people aren't real smart. We're not dealing with, cream of the crop there intellectually. So there you go. And let's come back. Yes, well, let me see here. I've got a lot to cover, so look at this. Congratulations. This is from Richard Grinnell. Congratulations, Donald Trump. Kosovo awarding Trump its highest honor after Serb economic deal. Kosovo is giving U.S. President Donald Trump its highest award for his role in helping Kosovo and Serbia reach a deal aimed at normalizing economic ties. Well, you won't hear that in the mainstream media, will you? No. You don't hear anything good about Trump in the media. So I'm going to have to skip around here a bit because I think we are running out of time. Well, we're only at 43. Yeah, I can cover a bit more. Actually, maybe a lot more. Okay, well, let's look at this. Wow. That's just one plane after another tonight. The military base is not far from me, so who knows what's up. All right. Let's look at this. Trump announces creation of National 1776 Commission to promote patriotic education. Now this is awesome. This is from today, so it's fresh. It's hot and fresh. Critical race theory and revisionist history, such as the New York Times 1619 Project, are toxic and need to be countered with patriotic education. U.S. President Donald Trump vowed, announcing a new initiative to do so. Speaking on Thursday On the occasion of Constitution Day, the anniversary of the U.S. founding document being signed in 1787, Trump denounced the radicals who seek to demolish this treasured and precious inheritance, specifically naming critical race theory, the 1619 Project, and Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. The left-wing rioting and mayhem are the direct result of decades of left-wing indoctrination in our schools, Trump said, referring to the unrest that began at the end of May and spread across the country, ostensibly in the name of racial justice. Critical race theory, the 1619 Project, and the crusade against American history is toxic propaganda, an ideological poison that, if not removed, will dissolve the civic bonds that tie us together. Teaching critical race theory in schools is child abuse in the truest sense of those words, Trump said. And this from the White House: with the help of everyone here today, the legacy of 1776 will never be erased. Our heroes will never be forgotten. Our youth will be taught to love America with all their heart and all their soul. Calling the U.S. the most fair, equal, and prosperous nation in human history, Trump said that Americans will never submit to the tyranny of cancel culture and will reclaim our history and our country for citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed. As a specific measure to achieve this, he announced the establishment of a presidential commission on patriotic education called the 1776 Commission, after the year the original 13 American colonies declared independence from Britain. The New York Times embraced the 1619 Project last year as part of a pivot from Russiagate conspiracy theories to accusing Trump of racism. The author of its flagship essay, Nicole Hannah-Jones, was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in March. Through the partnership with the Pulitzer Center, Hannah-Jones' work has already been distributed to thousands of U.S. classrooms. Her essay had to be corrected several times. However, it is inaccurately claimed, among other things, that the American Revolution was fought to preserve slavery. In response to the White House releasing excerpts from Trump's speech on Thursday, some mainstream media outlets rallied to condemn his criticism of the 1619 Project and declare Hannah-Jones a national treasure. Well, I beg to differ. And says an important note that as President Trump gears up to attack the 1619 Project, Hannah-Jones is a national treasure who put in context how America came to be, the black enslaved people it exploited, and the way forward. We should all be grateful for the 1619 Project. Collective eye roll? Yeah. And this person says, during a deadly pandemic, a recession, and climate change, Trump and Republicans are attacking critical race theory and the 1619 Project that discusses the historical legacy of slavery and racism. Cool. Economic anxiety, racial flare-ups, racially charged politics, ... Yeah. Well, I think President Trump is awesome, and I am totally behind what he's doing here. I think it is awesome. And if people are not proud of the country in which they live, they should move. Really. And I know people say, oh, it's not that easy. Well, if you hate your country that much, and if it's occupying that much of your time, well, where there's a will, there's a way. I know. I immigrated to the States, didn't know anybody. And then I had to come back to Canada, which is, well, it's not forever. So anyway, yeah. Now, let's go on, because we can. Yeah, this is pretty wild right here, and really wild. And sensitive viewers, you're not going to see anything, but it's a horrible story. Homicide investigation after woman's death at Seattle's Cal Anderson Park. A suspect was barricaded at the Capitol Hill Park after a woman was found dead. Her death is being investigated as a homicide. And this is from today. Woman died at Seattle's Cal Anderson Park Wednesday evening, and her death is being investigated as a domestic violence homicide. Now, I don't think this is the one that I was reading about, and this may not be. Okay, this isn't what I thought it was. I thought it was an article about someone that had been killed in Chaz or Chop or whatever. I mean, it's not that anymore, but at the time. So that was my mistake. So let's, yeah, I like this. And I think that this is important right now. So I think we need to look at this. Newt was right. Robbie Starbuck's receipt-filled thread about Soros helping elect extremists across the country, a must read. And I would agree. And it says, what was going on with this exchange on Fox News? Why wouldn't they want Newt Gingrich pointing out that George Soros has played a huge part in electing extremists across the country? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Robbie Starbuck put together a quite frankly terrifying thread proving exactly what Newt was trying to say. Take a look. In one smaller DA race alone, George Soros pumped in $800,000. He's done this all over the country to elect extremists. This has been widely reported. I've always had a lot of respect for you, Harris Faulkner, but why was Newt shut down for pointing this out? And this is the article. Soros adds intrigue and $800,000 to DA race backing progressive candidate. So that was one. And in Philadelphia, I'm just, instead of repeatedly repeating his name because that will flag me, I'm just going to call him he. In Philadelphia, he spent an insane $1,700,000 to elect Larry Krasner as the DA. He bought that race entirely. He's done this all over the country. How is this even the slightest bit controversial to point out? And here, 2015 is when he began to inject insane money into DA races that usually have campaign budgets in the low five figures. Look at this story from 2016 when media first realized what he was doing. Again, why can't Newt Gingrich talk about this? It's a good question. So, yeah, it says he funds local prosecutor races. So he's been doing this for a long time, and everybody knows it. I mean, I knew it. I assume you guys knew it. Here's another DA race funded by him. One of the few that didn't work out, but it's worth looking at the fact he spent was the largest made in a race for district attorney's office in San Diego. So he spent an amount that was the largest ever for a race for a district attorney's office in San Diego. This isn't a conspiracy theory, and this has been happening. Yes, it has. So those are just a few, but apparently pointing this out is a big no-no. Yep, we don't get it either, folks. And it says here, the negative effect of his funded DAs is indisputable. The extremists he backed have seen rising crime, murder, riots, and one has made their city the most violent city in the U.S. now. One DA in San Francisco has helped to elect. He helped elect, used to be a translator for Hugo Chavez. Yeah, you got that right. And rising crime, rising murder, riots, he enabled it all. Robbie Starbuck, here's another example. He gave $2 million to support Kim Foxx's re-election bid in Cook County. Why does her name sound familiar? She's the one who let Jussie Smollett off after he perpetrated a hoax that cost the city millions. Kamala recently endorsed her still. Yeah. And you guys remember Kim Foxx, right? Democrats love to accuse Republicans of anti-Semitism if we discuss him. His massive expenditures and influence is ironic because they're being anti-Semitic, assuming criticism of a man's spending who happens to be Jewish equals criticism of Judaism. What a horrible assumption. And beneath, feel free to respond with how much money he has dumped into your local races. It's even more than I originally thought it was before I went digging deeper. Even in Texas, he is spending big money to knock out incumbent Democrat DAs because they aren't far enough left. one of his well-funded far-left candidates just won in Travis County, Texas. And right now in the Broward state attorney race, he has poured more money in than anyone else, $750,000 to back his far-left candidate. Races like this have never had this kind of money spent on them. All over the country, this is happening. And bizarrely, Melissa A. Francis, even Fox has covered his influence on DA elections and how the DAs he backed have taken positions that are extremely anti-police and have increased crime in their districts. I think you owe Newt Gingrich an apology. I would say so. And don't forget about the St. Louis prosecutor Kim Gardner's election. He dumped $116,000 into getting her reelected. You may recognize her name because she's the prosecutor going after the McCloskeys for defending their home from right-wing rioters. And he spent $1.4 million getting Aramis, I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name, elected as DA in Orlando, Florida. After being elected, Ayala suddenly refused to seek the death penalty, and Rick Scott had to take those cases away from Ayala. Yeah, and this goes on and on and on. More, $1.2 million to unseat a Republican DA in Colorado. Now, he lost this one, but he poured in $147,000 in Georgia, and the other Dem dropped out, clearing the way for his candidate. $1.1 million in Harris County, Texas, $1.8 million in Maricopa County, Arizona, $107,000 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and $190,000 in St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah. Why isn't that election interference? Why isn't he being held responsible? And more than, and it says it just keeps going and going. He who must not be named in 2016 contributed at least $3.8 million to political action committees supporting candidates for district attorney in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Missouri, New Mexico, Texas, and Wisconsin. And here's an interesting one. He put up $406,000, or he put $406,000 into a DA race for Caddo Parish in Louisiana. That isn't some huge city. The district represents 250,000 people. That kind of money in a DA race like this is totally insane. This was in 2015 when he started doing this. So Newt was right. Gosh, who knew? Oh, that's right. Most everyone watching this segment. Yeah, we all knew. All right, now let's go back and see what else we can cover quickly here. I do have more stuff, but well, let's do this. Let's hit on Joe Biden. Another just bizarre exchange with him. Well, I'm not even going to read this. I'm just going to let you listen. All right, here we go.
You know, there's a great philosopher, and he talked about Jill puts notes up on my mirror when she wants me to, where I shave, to get the messages across to me. And there's a philosopher who once said that faith sees best in the dark. Kierkegaard said that. Well, and solace in our faith that our best days are ahead. You know, there's a great philosopher, and he talked about...
Yeah, he said, you know, there's that great philosopher, and he talked about Jill puts notes on my mirror when she wants me to, where I shave, to get messages across to me. And there's a philosopher who once said, faith sees best in the dark. Kierkegaard said that. Now, that's a great quote, but, I mean, this should concern anybody that's watching this. I mean, we've all seen older people as, you know, they get dementia or whatever, and this is just very, very characteristic. And I feel bad that they're doing this to him. I really do. I know we all take it out on Joe and make fun of him, but really, I think this is absolutely immoral, and I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. It's just out and out abuse of another human being, and it's disgusting. And it makes me dislike the Democrats even more, that they would do that to someone. So anyway, and unfortunately, I don't have a feel-good story tonight, but I will have for the next show. So let me just see. Yeah, let's look at this real quick too, because this won't take very long. Employee fired by Maryland governor's office for supporting Kyle Rittenhouse hires Kenosha teen's lawyer to fight back. So, and Kyle Rittenhouse, of course, was the guy that, in self-defense, he shot one and killed another. But it was most definitely self-defense, and all the videos proved it. He hired a lawyer. Well, there was an employee, and this employee was fired by the Maryland governor's office because this employee supported Kyle Rittenhouse. And so he has now hired Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyer to defend him. And I think that is good, because Maryland's Republican Governor Larry Hogan fired an employee for supporting Kyle Rittenhouse on social media last month. The employee, Arthur Mac Love IV, is fighting back and has hired Rittenhouse's lawyer, John Pierce of Pierce Bainbridge, who previously told Gateway Pundit that the governor should step down immediately over the termination. As the Gateway Pundit previously reported, Love was the deputy director of the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives, which oversees the state's ethic and cultural commissions, community service programs, and religious outreach since 2015. In August, he was fired for posts on his private Facebook account in support of Rittenhouse. One of the posts featured a photo of the teenager cleaning graffiti with Love, writing, "I'm grateful that conservatives are rallying behind this kid. He genuinely seems like a good person." These divisive images and statements are inconsistent with the mission and core values of the Office of Community Initiatives. Earlier today, I relieved this employee of his duties. Kevin Kraft, Administrative Director of the Governor's Commission on African Affairs, will assume these duties effective immediately. Steve McAdams, Executive Director of the Governor's Office on Community Initiatives, said in a statement following Love's termination. Love's family spokesman and longtime friend Gary M. Collins said in a statement provided to Gateway Pundit that after being contacted by nearly every major law firm in the country, our team thought Attorney John Pierce was uniquely qualified to protect Mac's constitutional rights and fight back against his unlawful termination by Governor Hogan. John has successfully been in the corner of notable clients like former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, 2020 presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard, and Trump advisor Carter Page. Now he is fighting for one of the most dedicated and selfless public servants in Maryland, Mr. Mac Love. In addition to justice being served, we are confident all actions taken will also expose Governor Hogan's lip service of saying that he will always uphold the Constitution, yet will not defend the freedoms it affords. Larry Hogan is an embarrassment. He should focus more on providing law and order to the people of Maryland and less reading social media. He should step down immediately. Pierce previously told the Gateway Pundit self-defense is the most fundamental American right. If citizens cannot safely express their support of the God-given right of self-defense in America without fear of being fired by a so-called Republican governor of a major state, we are lost. Couldn't agree more. In a letter to the governor's office provided to the Gateway Pundit, Pierce wrote that the governor firing Love was in violation of his constitutional rights. We're not going to read that letter. But, and of course, we know the whole story about Kyle Rittenhouse. We don't need to read that. But I think that that is good that he's fighting that, because it is not fair. And Kyle Rittenhouse, it was so obvious that he was defending himself. He would have been killed. There is no doubt about it. So I think that, let me see where we are here. Well, we are at an hour, and let me just make sure that I don't have anything else here that we have to cover. And I think we're okay. I can't remember what this is, so let me take a look at this. Yeah, this is interesting. Biden doesn't want school choice. How about that, libs? He's not going to help parents who want a better education for their children. And that should surprise no one. So let's just take a look at this.
NEA members have pushed back against what we think are very misguided school reforms, like charter schools. You know how we feel about charter schools. We'd like to know how you feel about charter schools.
No privately funded charter school would receive, or private church would receive a penny federal money. None.
He agrees with the NEA and the AFT on any of these school choice initiatives. They want to kill them off. And if they can use COVID to try to shut down some of these schools, they'll do that too.
That's right. So I think that was important to see. And I think I'm going to just do one more because I just got to look at this. And I think that this needs to be covered too. So let's take a look at this from the Activist Post. As COVID-1984 accelerates, Bill Gates blames freedom for the spread of the virus. Oh gosh, this is an old one. It's August 21st, so never mind. But I'd never read that before. So there he is. He's blaming freedom. That's what he's blaming. Recently, Bill Gates gave an interview to the Rothschild partially owned Economist. In this interview, Gates was asked about how he views the U.S. response to the outbreak. His reply was, aside from the high-risk money the U.S. ponied up for vaccine research and development, he thinks the U.S. is doing a poor job overall. Well, Bill Gates, this is what we think of you. Yeah, blow it out your hinder parts. We don't care what you think. Anyway, I'm not going to cover that. It's old now. So, all right, that is it for tonight, and I will be back tomorrow. Probably going to be up all night with these planes flying over. Can you hear them on the video? You must be able to hear them. They're loud. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate it. And again, I apologize for missing a few days this week with whatever this is. So hopefully I will be doing better very soon and able to do a couple videos a night. Well, not every night, but some nights, you know, just for an extra bonus. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth. Good night, guys.